9月6日金曜日、現在は21時25分を回るところになります。本日はアメリカの雇用統計発表の日ということで、今からですね、22時ちょうどまで、録画していきたいと思います。現在のレートが、ユーロドルが 1.31 の21、ドル円が、99円の66銭、ユーロ円が130円の77銭、OG ドルが 0.91 の66で、推移しております。本日の、雇用統計ですけども、事前予想が、出てまして、8月の非農業部門雇用者数が、プラスの 18.0 万人、失業率が、7.4% と、それぞれ、予想が、出てますね。一応参考情報として、昨日ですね、発表された8月の ADP 全国雇用者数、こちらがですね、事前予想プラスの 18.4 万人ところがプラスの 17.6 万人ということで、予想には届かなかったんですけども、まずいい数字だったんじゃないかなというような、ところでですね、あとそうですね、週間の新規失業保険申請件数とかもこのところ、35万件を切るような数字でずっと推移してますので、今回の数字もですね、無難に、いい数字が出るんじゃないかなっていうのは、結構期待されているところではありますね。で、直近の動きなんですけども、そうですね、今週はなんだかんだ言いながらドル円の上昇がちょっと、目立ってまして、現在も99円の73銭というところで、推移してますけども、昨日は100円超えて100円の20銭ぐらいまで上げたんですかね。高いところまであったんですけども、日付変わってというか、昨日の入浴時間終わってからはちょっと売りに押されているような感じでですね、今日ここまでは終日ちょっと難聴推移でずっと来ているかなという感じですね。で、逆に、ユーロドルの方はですね、ドル円買われているということなので、ちょっと、売り込まれているような状況にはなってますね。現在 1.31 の21で推移してますけども、今回、もですけども、結構いい数字が出るっていう風に、結構市場の方が決めかかっているようなところがありますので、逆に悪い数字が出た時にはですね、ちょっと、ネガティブサプライズでですね、ドル円は結構高いところまで来てますからね、今週の上昇幅を一気に吐き出すなんていうことも、少し想定しておいた方がいいかなという気がしてますね。そうなると逆にユーロドルはですね、今週売られてた分が買い戻されるかなという感じですけども、いい数字が出てもそこまで大きく動くことはないかなという気がしてますね。逆に、ネガティブな数字が出た時の方が怖いかなという、感じで今のところは見ております。あともう少々で発表になりますので、発表の時間をですね、待ちたいと思います。
Well, I think it does have an impact. I mean, in a sense, the Bank of England used the phrase unwarranted movements in longer-term interest rates. This makes it tougher, if you like. This is, if it continues in the longer term, this will have an impact on jobs, and the Fed will know that. So we'll see. We'll see today what's going on. But I'm waiting. A number of 200 almost makes tapering certain, but a lower number, well, we'll see.
All right, okay, just hang on, guys, because our team is standing by for these numbers at any moment. Economics editor Mike McKee, our markets reporter Alex Steele will have the markets reaction, and of course Peter Cook, our chief Washington correspondent, is standing by at the Labor Department to break those numbers for you. For those of you who don't know, let me just go through what we are expected to see from economists surveyed in August. 180,000 jobs would have been created. In private payrolls, private jobs, also very key. About 180,000 jobs are also expected to have been created in the month of August. And the unemployment rate, which has been very key for the public, that is expected to stay at 7.4%. Peter?
Betty, 169,000 jobs in the month of August. The unemployment rate ticks down to 7.3%, but there are revisions in this report that do not make it look quite as good as it first appears. This report gives the Fed a lot more to have to consider as it decides whether to taper in September. The non-farm payroll number again, 169,000.
結果出ましたね。非農業部門雇用者数がプラスの 16.9 万人。失業率が 7.3% ですね。事前予想がプラスの18万と 7.4% だったんですけど、結果がプラスの16万9000で、失業率が 7.3% ということで、結果出てきてますけども、ちょっとドル円激しく売られてますかね。99円の70銭台ぐらいまであったんですけども、そこからちょっと一気に、ちょっと下売り込まれているような形になってますね。結果は市場予想には届かなかったんですけども、そこまで悪い数字ではないと思いますが、市場の反応としては今ちょっと激しく下に、売り込んでるかなという形の、値動きになってますね。日足で表示してますけども、もう100ポイントぐらい、下がってきてますんで、ちょっと今週末、G20 の結果とか、あとオーストラリアの、総選挙があったりとか、あとドル円だけで言うとですね、オリンピックの、開催地決定とかっていう話もありますんで、週末にかけてポジションを外したい向きも、あるのかなと思いますけども、ちょっと今週の上げ分下手したら全部吐き出すような展開に、なるかもしれないですね。
Right now, maybe just weak enough to keep the Fed off the trigger button. I don't know, Alex, what kind of market reaction are you seeing?
A very interesting one, Betty. Actually, S&P futures near the highs of the session right now, sitting right on its 50-day moving average at 1661. If you take a look at the intraday for the futures chart, you see that the S&P started to move slightly higher right before the jobs number came out. We had an immediate decline lower on the number, sort of the disappointment that the jobs number wasn't as good as estimated. However, now we are at session highs. Now, if you take a look at the Treasury market, like you mentioned, Betty, we are seeing the 10-year yield come slightly lower as well, down below that 3% level that we saw hit yesterday. Anticipation perhaps the Fed will continue to buy Treasury bonds. In the currency market, you're seeing the dollar continue to weaken. It already saw some profit taking against the euro earlier in the day, and then you're seeing a bigger sell-off in the dollar. Of course, the euro then goes higher after that jobs number came out, right? If you don't taper, perhaps the dollar is not going to get any stronger. If you take a look at the commodity market, the real story that you're going to look at here is gold. At one point, it was up over 1% on the news. You see that spike here right up there on the number. Of course, if Fed's going to taper, strengthen the dollar, the economy is better, gold is not a great place to invest money. But if you're not going to taper, then gold shoots higher now over 1380. Betty.
Thanks so much, Alex. Just stand by with me. I want to go to Mike now because, Mike, I can't help but I'm fixated on these yields here on the treasuries because, you know, that 10-year yield has gone down like 12 basis points. You've got the markets, though, the equity market's up. So
But look at the level.
Okay.
Look at the level, Betty. It's gone back to where it was a couple of days ago, basically. It's not going back to where it was before the Fed started talking about tapering, which tells you something about what the market thinks the Fed is going to do in September. They priced this in, and that's one reason that I would still bet after this number they're going to lean towards it because there's nobody so far come out and said you're going the wrong way, and the Fed doesn't like to surprise the markets. When you look at the number overall today, it's bad in comparison to what the estimates were, but not in comparison to what has been happening. It sort of continues a trend of weak but still okay job creation. And, of course, they've got the unemployment rate down to 7.3%. Yes, Danny's going to say it's for the wrong reasons, and we saw a big drop in labor force participation, but is QE going to and more QE going to help more people come into the labor market? That's a real question. We did see an increase in earnings. That's good news. It suggests that maybe people are going to have some money to spend going forward. And we did see companies increase hours worked. So that means that they are not cutting back at this point, and they might begin to add. So it really comes down to your forecast. Do you think things are going to get better from here? This is a plateau and we're going to go up, or this is a plateau and we're going to go down?
Well, Danny, do you think that this is, I mean, give me your take on this. Do you think that things are going to continue to get better here?
I think the answer is, if you look at it, Mike's right. The big thing here is the decline in the participation rate. And we know these non-participants are pushing down on wages. And we have these concerns about what's happening on the fiscal front and monetary tightening. My suspicion is that if you're sitting at the Fed and you're a voter, you'd say to yourself, I'm not sure exactly where this is going.
Yeah.
There's a reason perhaps to sit and wait. So I think it's a pretty close call. My suspicion is that what's happening on the fiscal front and with the extra degree of monetary tightening, this makes the decision for September less likely. Probably most people will think, well, let's wait till October and see. This is not great news. I mean, there's revisions to the past. This is a labour market that's doing okay, but not great, and earnings aren't rising. So I think if you were predicting where things are going, I think you'd be kind of uncertain.
Yeah, it's sort of a toss-up right now. It's much more mixed. Mike?
Well, what if they do cut back, Danny? Their argument is we're still stimulating the economy. Would it make a whole lot of difference?
Well, it wouldn't make a whole lot of difference. I mean, it's in a way, the amount that we're talking about them cutting is relatively small. But remember that Bernanke's made it clear that if things worsen, they could always increase again. So this is really at the margins, at the edges. Not clear that they need to do it. Although they may think, well, we've signaled we're going to go, we should do that. But no, you're right. If they were to cut by 10 billion, that's not that much a month.
What could that really do?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the best thing to do is to say we should wait and see. We'll wait and see what happens, particularly on the fiscal front. And that's going to get sorted out, hopefully, in the next 3 weeks or so.
Stephen, you know, we've heard so much about how the rising interest rates have hurt the housing recovery. Does it make a difference what the Fed does with stimulus in terms of whether or not this housing recovery is going to continue to go up?
Well, I think it'll continue to go up. I mean, certainly nothing is, you know, people are going to wait and see. But there's a trend that it is going up, and I think that trend will continue unless something happens, you know, that's dramatic internationally. But right now, I think, you know, there's storm clouds out there, but things will continue the way they're going.
And what could possibly, you know, because we did have, Steve, pretty dismal July numbers, and people owed that to the rising interest rates. What could really hold back housing?
Well, I mean, if you had a dramatic rise in interest rates, certainly that would hold back housing. If you had, you know, an international flare-up, I mean, people might, you know, put off their decision. But I think you can see where there's a long-term trend. And I think when you're looking at it from a real estate perspective, you have to look at it long-term. And it's a question of time, really, when interest rates will rise, because we know that that will happen.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, when you look at it, it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to be that dramatic, or hopefully not, it won't be. And I think that the markets will continue to react in the direction they're going.
Peter?
Daddy, I just want to weigh in on the fiscal picture here. The notion that Denny Blanchflower has that maybe Congress and the administration might sort things out in the next 3 weeks. If only that was the expectation here in Washington. There is a real sense, Betty, with Syria, with everything going on, that they're going to punt that, at least the spending bills, the budget bill, maybe another month or so, a continuing resolution, then the fight over the debt ceiling mid-October. There may be even more uncertainty after the Fed meets in September over the fiscal situation, whether or not there might be more crises to come here in Washington. My question for Danny and everyone else is, to what extent does the Fed have to bake in some insurance policy in case things on the fiscal front get even more muddled?
I got a question for Steve.
Well, I think
based on what Peter was saying, and that is uncertainty holding you back in your business dealings?
Well, I mean, from our business perspective and making decisions from real estate, you know, you have to look more at the macro trends than these micro trends. And, you know, we do know interest rates will be rising. And it's a question, you know, real estate is really a function of jobs. And as jobs increase, there's a greater demand for real estate. And that's basically what we look to.
All right, Danny, you get the final word. React to what Peter said.
Well, I do think the levels of uncertainty are particularly important. I mean, remember that the Fed is thinking about tapering based upon its forecasts of what it thinks is going to happen in a couple of years.
雇用統計発表50分、経過しましたけども、結果、8月の非農業部門雇用者数がプラスの16万9000人、で失業率が 7.3%、という結果になってますね。事前予想は、非農業部門雇用者数がプラスの18万人、で失業率が 7.4% ということだったので、失業率は 0.1 ポイント改善なんですが、非農業部門雇用者数が、若干、市場予想には届かなかったかなという、感じの数字になってますね。でそれを受けて、ドル円急落ですね。ユーロドルはそこまで、動いてないんですけども、ちょっとドル円の急落が目立つかなという形ですね。あと、オージドルがちょっと、0.92 台を一瞬つけてましたので、ちょっとこれ予想外に上に跳ねたかなという、感じの推移になりましたね。今また 0.91 の88まで下がってきますけども、一瞬 0.92 の11ぐらいまで、つけてましたね。現在ダウの先物が、プラスの47ドルですね。で日経平均の先物がマイナス250円ということなので、ちょっとドル円一人負けみたいな値動きになってますかね。ドル円、あと黒線全部下がってますね。ユーロ円もそうですし、5ドル円はそこまで下がってないですかね。オージードルが思いっきり上げてますので、5ドル円はそこまで上がってないですけど、下がってないですけども、ユーロ円は、そうですね、やっぱり結構下げちゃいましたね。ドル円、クロス円が大幅に売られて、ユーロドルはそこまで動かず、オージードルが、大幅上昇というような、ちょっといつもとは、違うパターンといいますか、少し変わった値動きかなという感じがしますね。これだけドル円下がってますからね、ユーロドルはもっと上がってもいいかなというところなんですけども、ユーロドルの上昇も小幅ですね。逆に、オージードルの上昇はちょっと目立つかなという感じですかね。オージーに関しては、土曜日、明日ですかね。オーストラリアは選挙がありますので、ちょっとそれで、来週のですね、朝のオセアニア時間と結構、注目されてるんじゃないかなという感じですけども、ちょっと 0.92 っていうの直近の、高値取ってきたということなので、ここからまた上に行くのか、そのまま上っ離れるのかどうかっていうのは、選挙結果と合わせてですね、ちょっと、注目していきたい、来週以降ですね、注目していきたい部分かなという感じですね。
Well, as I'd mentioned, the jobs report just came out a few moments ago, a little bit worse than expected, but this was really sort of a mixed report. Equity futures right now are trading higher. Alex Steele has more on the market reaction.
Yeah, Betty, what's interesting is we're seeing the S&P trade pretty much where it was before the number came out. If you look at the intraday reaction, you saw that increase in the S&P right before the number came out. You saw an immediate decline lower. And now you're pretty much neutral. You're sitting below the 100-day moving average, which is where the markets were, below the 50-day, which is where the markets were before the jobs number came out. If you take a look at the Treasury market, though, it tells a bit of a different story. We're continuing to see a decline lower in the 10 10-year yields. After that number came out, we see that spike lower right here on that report. Perhaps if the Fed doesn't taper, there's no reason to sell your bonds. Now, if you take a look in the currency market, the dollar has recovered somewhat. We saw some profit taking into the number, a steep decline lower for the dollar versus the euro, and then now you're pretty much trading in the neutral territory. In terms of commodities, again, you really got to look at gold for this. It's been a little bit of a weird day for gold. You saw that immediate spike up, and then you saw a decline, and then you saw a rally again. So right now, just over $13. At one point, it was up over 1%. However, of course, if the Fed's going to taper, it leaves less opportunity for holding gold, less inflationary measures as well. But pretty much, Betty, the takeaway here is steady as she goes, sort of seeing a similar reaction after the number than we did before.
Joanna, can you? Alex, thank you so much. Our markets reporter, Alex Steele. Now, football season has officially returned with defending Super Bowl champions Baltimore Ravens and the Denver Broncos kicking things off last night. Four-time MVP Peyton Manning led the Broncos to victory with 7 touchdown passes, becoming the 6th quarterback in NFL history to do so in one single game. Talk about starting things off right. Okay, I'm joined by Stephen Ross, the chairman of real estate firm Related Companies and also majority owner of the Miami Dolphins. Stephen, actually, last time I saw you, I think we were at the Super Bowl together.
Yeah.
In New Orleans.
New Orleans, sure. I was going to say it all comes together, right?
Okay, so everyone's asking. The fans are wondering, what are you going to do different with the Miami Dolphins?
Well, hopefully win this year and make the playoffs.
Okay, how?
Well, I mean, it's all really, the NFL is a quarterback-driven league, and hopefully, we get better play with our quarterback. It's his second year. We're excited about him. We added some receivers, so he has some real talent to throw to, and we've added strength at other positions. So we're really excited about this season.
Now, did you watch last night's game?
Parts of it, yes.
Parts of it. What did you think of it?
I mean, it was an exciting game. We tried to get Peyton Manning when he was available last year, and it shows you he's got a lot left. He's got a lot left in the tank, as they say. We tried, but he chose to go to Denver. It was a tremendous performance last night.
Well, it's a lot more competitive game, and certainly the league itself, as we know, the NFL league I'm talking about, extremely powerful. And we saw that with this whole dispute between CBS and Time Warner Cable, how important live football is to viewers.
Well, obviously live sports today is the most important type of content there is. The National Football League being the best content or what people want the most. And the excitement, it's like any given Sunday, you don't know who's going to win. And to see the Baltimore Ravens were the Super Bowl champs and how they got beaten in their first game, that adds the excitement, and I think people really love that. And that's really the popularity of the NFL is what it is today.
So how do you then translate what you do in property and business to what you do with the Miami Dolphins?
Well, they don't really work together that well. Fortunately.
What's more fun?
Well, what's fun is something you haven't done before, and that's really, kind of owning a football team and trying to build a winner. That challenge is one of the reasons that propelled me to buy a team. But certainly you have to make your fortune somewhere else.
Before you do that.
Right. And real estate was really something I have a lot of passion for. And fortunately I've been successful and be in a position to buy a team. But, I really enjoy both, and I have passion for both. But, this time of the season today, we're looking at the start of the season on Sunday. And, looking for an exciting year.
For an exciting year, right? And you're hopefully for a lot more fans to be joining in. Now, there was some news recently in the NFL with the settlement with former players, about 4,500 other players, on this whole concussion, what now is being called a concussion crisis in football. So as a team owner, how do you view that? Is there a concussion crisis in the NFL?
Well, everybody is concerned in seeing the impacts of what football is today, when you look at the size and the strength of these players, and, you have to be concerned about that. I think it's one of the primary concerns of the NFL and what we're doing to really kind of, combat it with better equipment, doing research, and making sure that the players are protected. I think the settlement was great for both. I think that, those players who have suffered.
Is it enough?
Enough in terms of money?
In terms of money.
I think so. I don't think you would have settled if it wasn't enough. Both sides had to believe that it was, worthwhile putting it to bed and really, putting it behind us, I think, was very important. And those players who needed the assistance that'll come from that, as well as the money that's going to go into research to prevent it in the future. So I think, you know, and so
雇用統計発表から20分、経過しましたけども、雇用統計の結果からはですね、非農業部門雇用者数がプラスの16万9000人、失業率が 7.3% という結果になってまして、事前予想が非農業部門雇用者数がプラスの18万人、で失業率が 7.4% でしたから、失業率は 0.1% 改善、ですが、非農業部門雇用者数が若干、事前予想に届かずというような、結果で、終わってます。それを受けてですね、ちょっとドル円一人負けみたいな、形に、なってますかね。発表前は99円の77銭ぐらいまであったんですけども、そこから安値が98円の86銭ぐらいまでありましたから、ほぼほぼ1円近く、ちょっと急落したような形になってますね。で逆にユーロドルは上がるかなと思ったんですけども、上値もそこまで、上値も限定的ですよね。あんまり、そんなに動いてないかなという形にはなってますかね。現在 1.31 の42で推移してますけども、逆にオージードルが結構上げましたかね、上値、0.92 台、0.92 の10ぐらいまであったんですかね。手元の、ツールだと 0.92 の14が、高値になってますけども、ユーロドルはほぼあまり動いてないんですけども、オージードルは結構上昇したかなという形にはなってますね。やっぱり、ドル円、黒線がちょっと、弱いかなっていう、その弱さが、目立つような動きになってますね。全体的に、ドル売りの、流れにはなってるかと思いますけども、今週ちょっとすいません、今週ドル円が、かなり買われてましたからね。ちょっとその分の利食いも、ちょっとこのどさくさに紛れてですね、一緒に入ってきそうな、感じかなというとこですかね。この後、ニューヨークダウも動きますし、ロンドンフィックスに向けてですね、もう一段ちょっと売りが加速しそうな、なんかそんな感じの、チャートに今のところなってますね。
Disney's Bob Iger is going to talks with Dish Network, ready to wield the biggest weapon in his arsenal. This is Iger, who faces a September 30th deadline to reach an agreement with Dish over carrying all of Disney's channels. Disney owns the 800-pound gorilla of them all, ESPN. The sports channel gets the highest fees of any channel, and Iger is not likely to go for anything less than a healthy increase. And that is Dish TV, which has a dilemma. It's trying to hold down costs while not wanting viewers to slip away to online players like Netflix. Dish got some bad news over the weekend, CBS winning in that standoff with Time Warner Cable. If ESPN is must-see for viewers, it's must-have for Dish. Bob Iger may be licking his chops at that prospect. And it is about 56 minutes past the hour, which means Bloomberg Television is on the markets. As I mentioned, we got kind of a mixed jobs report. The headline number came in a little bit worse than economists' estimates, although that jobless rate did fall. You see equity futures here at near their session highs. And in the meantime, bond markets, that yield has dropped considerably now for the 10-year, 2.87%, although elevated from where we were just a few weeks ago. We are on the markets again in 30 minutes. And coming up, we'll have more on that August jobs report. With us, the CEO of the world's largest bond fund manager, PIMCO's Mohamed El-Erian. You're watching In the Loop live on Bloomberg Television, streaming on your tablet and Bloomberg.com.